Hi, I'm Nate, and you're watching Photolearningism. Gosh, it's been a long time since I've been back, but it is good to be here. I wanted to walk you through why I moved from Windows to Ubuntu and what it can do for you as well. Let's take the journey. Alright, so let's talk about Ubuntu. Alright, I wanted to first kind of dig in a little bit as to why. Why, for somebody who's grown up on Windows, would you suddenly decide to do this? And really, ultimately, I got to the point where I just hit a point of frustration. There's a new model, well, not so new anymore, but a model that came around with Windows 10. They became very pointed, where updates were pretty much forced on you. You didn't have a lot of control. You can postpone them, and I understand that. But they just kind of run, and they take forever, and it's disruptive, and they download in the background, but that kind of kills productivity while I'm doing stuff, and I don't understand why things aren't working. So those are just some of the things that I kind of took issue with coming from the Windows side. And I started shopping around for a Linux version. And if you're considering this as well, if you're hitting kind of that similar point where maybe you want to see what's out there, look at what's in the open source community, because there's a ton of innovation out there, ton of different options. It can be daunting. Where do you go? Which one do you try? What flavor, what distro are you going to dig out and attempt to play with a little bit? And I landed on Ubuntu because, number one, it is easy to set up dual boot. I was able to keep Windows alongside of this operating system, Ubuntu, and kind of bounce back and forth while I was trying to figure things out if I got stuck somewhere. I didn't want to kill my ability to do things while I was learning it. All right, so that was important. The procedures are very well documented, by the way, on the Ubuntu main site. They walk you through how to set up a USB key and how to image it with an ISO, and how to boot to it and take care of those things. I found that very, very easy and written very, very, very well and intuitively for somebody who may not be technically savvy as well. I found that to be very, very good. So I decided Ubuntu is a good place to begin, and that's where I went. So now, another thing that may scare you if you're considering getting further into open source, because a thing to remember about open source is that they're not really bound to any commercial obligation. It is driven purely by community, purely by the innovative ideas of really smart people. So that can be a little daunting if you're worried about plugging stuff into it, but I want to take you through a few things that I've discovered which have made Ubuntu very easy to get into. Important to me was I needed a video editor. I have talked a ton about something called Kdenlive. All right, that is where I do all my video editing, and it supports up to 4K right now, and it is full featured, fully suited. I will put a card to where you can check out more about that particular thing, but it really takes care of all of your video editing needs, even some audio bits too. There's a lot built in and baked into this tool that make it very, very useful and powerful. That takes care of the video and audio pieces of things. You may ask yourself, well, I don't really do video. I do images, I do drawing, I do graphic design, I do photography. Well, okay. I found that you can actually use Krita for all of those things, and very effectively. I have videos on that too. I'll put a card up for that. You can walk through how to actually bring in raw images into Krita and work on them and treat it very much the same you would like a raw photo editor. You have a lot of control, same as you would with other tools that you may be familiar with in Windows, like Photoshop. There is no Photoshop in Ubuntu, there's no Photoshop in Linux, but this is a very good, I don't want to say substitute because it stands on its own, but it is a very powerful tool to accommodate the graphical and the photo editing spectrum of working. So some other things you might be concerned about are things like, well, how do I write? How do I do basic administrative tasks? Well, there is LibreOffice built into Ubuntu, which is another reason I like it, which is, for all practical purposes, it behaves like Word. There's a calc, which is basically Excel there are some nuances and things that are not exactly the same, but it's close enough where you can find your way through it. If you know formulas and things like that, then it's going to work almost the same here. And the advantage of it is that, again, this comes baked into this, with this packaging, with this operating system. So that takes care of those needs. Another thing you might be worried about is, well, how do I print? Because, I mean, I'm looking at my printer and there's no driver. Well, I ran into that too. And I'm happy to report that in my case, I'm using an Epson printer, an Artisan, and while Epson does not provide a native driver for that, there is a project out there, CUPS it's called, the Common Unix Printing System. Thank you to all of you who have worked on this, by the way. Really appreciate all of you. This really was the answer. It gave an interface which tapped into all the major pieces of my printer, including the special sizing, black and white, color settings, things that you couldn't get on generic drivers that are going to come with Ubuntu. So this really extends and solved a lot of my problems for printing. So that could work in your case as well, where if you happen to be working on a printer that doesn't provide, and most of them don't right now, this could be a solution that's already out there, and I have tested it personally and know it to be working. So another thing to bring out here is you may be wondering, well, I write books, and I looked recently, and yeah, kind of highlight Amazon here with their with their Kindle process. Their utility for formatting ebooks only works on Windows, only works on Mac. What do we do if we're on Linux? Well, somebody actually made a tool out there which is called Calibre. Again, it's free, open source, and it does all the same things that the Kindle utility would do for converting it to a friendly ebook format. In fact, while I'm on that subject, I made another ebook called Next Steps using this and published out there to the Kindle store. I would invite you to go check it out, and if you feel like supporting this channel, it's 99 cents. I would, you'd have my unending gratitude for doing so. But just to demonstrate the availability, functionality of what's there. All right, so you have choices, you have ways of getting things done, and I will admit, yeah, it does get a little tricky sometimes coming into this arena because you have to do things by, it's called terminal, by command line. The way you install things is not always graphical. There is a way to do that. That is a thing they built into Ubuntu, which is nice. Where it is graphical, you can find a lot of useful things there. OBS is another big one. That's what I'm capturing right now. That is actually designed around Linux, and they happen to make a Windows version of that in case you're using that in Windows. So hey, it works here, and there's actually a lot more functionality built into it within the Linux space. So you got nothing to lose by doing that. There are some caveats, of course, to setting it up, but by and large, it's plug and play. Very similar to what you'd find in Windows. The camera I'm using right now, I didn't have to do anything special other than plug it in, and I'm using an Elgato capture card. It's very friendly to a lot of these common devices that you will find in Windows, and bringing them over into Linux, to Ubuntu. All right, so I guess the point of all this is, if you have fears about trying out Ubuntu, I hope this will give you some courage to try, because for a long time I was very intimidated by, well, do I really want to have hands-on for everything? And it's not like that. You sometimes run into things, and a quick search turned up an answer in seconds. There are so many smart people out there who are friendly and will help you and have made millions of posts probably encountering what you're going to run into and already proposed an idea, because people love the concept of having an operating system that they own, that they contribute to, and that they've innovated into. So there's just literally hundreds of thousands of people who have written up things to help you solve and get through this experience. So check out the videos that I proposed, because I do a lot of talk through and an explanation of how these utilities work. While those videos are built and kind of recorded inside of Windows, all the same principles apply. I have worked and edited in Ubuntu for quite some time, and I can attest to the fact that things work the same, if not better. Hope that you'll be joining for future videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. Leave a comment, ask a question. We'll get back to the many ones that are out there. Thank you so much who have vigilantly watched and left comments and sought answers, and I hope the community is helping you out there. I'll get back to them soon, I promise. You have a good time, and I'll see you next video.